Hi, 7th graders. Today we are going to talk about the area of triangles and trapezoids with a little bit of reviewing of parallelograms as well. So, first of all, some vocabulary that's important to know. This word perpendicular is going to be used a lot, and so perpendicular, it's two lines or two line segments that intersect to form a right angle or a 90-degree angle. So again, typically you'll be looking for that little box to indicate that two lines or two sides are perpendicular to each other. We're going to be focused on area today, which is the number of square units needed to fill the inside of a shape. So we've looked at perimeter before, now we're focusing on area. So perimeter was the outside edge, area is that inside space, okay? And then we'll be referring a lot to a base and a height of a figure. So base is typically a bottom measurement of a figure, but it doesn't always need to be. And then height is going to be perpendicular to the base. So the biggest thing to know about your base and your height of an object on the parallelograms, the triangles, and the trapezoids is your base and your height need to be perpendicular to each other. So area of a parallelogram, this is kind of a review from elementary school. And so our area formula for a parallelogram is just base times height. And again, when you don't see an operation symbol, you assume that you're multiplying. So if you multiply your base times your height, you get the area. And so again, just notice that your base and your height need to be perpendicular to each other, forming that right angle. So if I wanted to find the area of this parallelogram, my area is base times height. Remember, formulas are great. They're just a guide or a template that tells us exactly what we need to do. So now I just need to plug in numbers. So when I look at this shape, I actually have some extra information here. I'm looking for my two measurements that are perpendicular to each other. And so over here is where I see that indicator that there's sides that are perpendicular. So this measurement of 6 is perpendicular with the measurement of the 2. So my base would be 6, my height is 2 inches, and so I would multiply, and so the area of that parallelogram would be 12 inches squared. This is where you might see like the little exponent 2 used, okay? Or you could say 12 square inches. And what that means is that it would literally be 12 square inches that would cover that. So if you think of drawing a grid on that parallelogram, it would take 12 squares, okay, given these measurements. So when we think of a triangle, if you think back to when we were figuring out degrees in the different shapes, the interior angles, remember a triangle is half of a parallelogram. And so our area formula for a triangle actually comes from that parallelogram formula. So if the parallelogram formula is base times height, our triangle formula, the area for a triangle, is 1/2 base times height. And so this might be one way you'll see it, or you could think base times height divided by 2. It kind of depends on the numbers you're being used on which way might be the easiest way to think of it. So here we have a triangle. If we wanted to find the area of this, we're gonna do 1/2 base times height. And here again, my base and my height are always gonna be perpendicular to each other. It doesn't matter which one of these shapes I'm talking about. So my perpendicular measurements are the 3 and the 9. So 9 and 3 are my base and my height. I'm gonna be doing 1/2. So sometimes if there's one of these numbers that's easier to take half first, you could multiply that first. In this case, it might just be easier to do 9 times 3 and then take half of that. So 9 times 3 is going to be 27, and if I take half of 27 or divide 27 by 2, whichever way you want to think of it, we would get 13.5 or 13.5. And again, we're doing area now, so this is going to be how many square units cover this object. So this would be square yards. For our trapezoid, so a trapezoid actually has two bases, so that's important to know, and the two bases are parallel to each other. And then again, the height has to be perpendicular to the bases. So when we figure out the area of a trapezoid, the formula is going to actually be the sum of our bases. So base 1 plus base 2 times the height, and then take half of that. And so where that comes from, quick little diagram here. If we have a trapezoid, and then let's see. All right, so I have two trapezoids here. They're not perfect, but let's just imagine. And so if I take the two trapezoids and I rotate and slide, notice that now I have a parallelogram shape. And so if this is my base 1 and this is my base 2, when I've rotated it, now this is base 1, that's base 2. So to get, if we think of our area formula for a parallelogram, remember it's base times height. And so this entire base here is actually going to be the sum of my base 1 and base 2, and then times the height, but because I just need the trapezoid, I only want half. So when we're looking at the area of a trapezoid, we're going to add those two bases first. It's in parentheses, that needs to happen first, okay? And then after that, the multiplication can happen in a variety of ways. So here, I'm going to start with my formula, 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times my height. My two bases are my parallel sides, okay, or the sides that are perpendicular to the height. So 5.1 and 1.9 are my bases. They're interchangeable, so it doesn't really matter which one's base 1 and base 2. It's just your parallel sides. And then my height that's perpendicular to those is going to be 2, and I'm going to need to take 1/2. So 5.1 plus 1.9 is going to be 7. So really I have 1/2 times 7 times 2. Now remember, you can multiply in any order. So I could multiply 7 times 2 and get 14, and then take half of that to get 7, or I could do half of 2 is 1, and then 1 times 7 is going to be 7. So this is going to be 1 square yard, or sorry, 7 square yards. On this next trapezoid, I have my two bases are my parallel sides. So I'm going to start with my formula. Base 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times my height. I'm going to plug in my parallel sides for my bases. My height is 3. And so 1.4 plus 4 gives me 5.4 times 3 times that 1/2, okay? And so again, we can multiply in any order. I could do 5.4 times 3 first, and then take half of that answer, or I could actually take half of 5.4, which is going to be 2.7, and multiply that times 3, which would give me 8.1. And so this would be 8.1 square inches. So there's a couple of examples here. I'm going to have you pause the video, and then you can go ahead and try these examples, and I will, when you play the video, then I'll go ahead and have the answers up here for you. So here on this first one, we have a triangle, so we always want to identify the shape first and then which formula we're using. So my base and my height are perpendicular to each other, so the 9 and the 3. I think this is actually one of our previous examples. So 1/2 of 27, your answer here should be 13.5 square yards. On this triangle, we have 1/2 base times height. My base and my height are 10 and 4.5. And then again, you could multiply in any order. And so I'm going to go ahead. The 10 times the 4.5 is pretty easy for me. And then the 1/2 of 45 is going to be 22.5 square kilometers. On this one, we have a trapezoid. So again, you want to identify your shape first so you know which formula to use. If I find my bases are my parallel sides, and then my height is perpendicular to that. So I'm going to end up needing to get a final answer here. Of 58.24 square inches. And then on this one, again, I have a trapezoid, so start with our formula. And then identify, so my bases are my parallel sides, which are the 1.6 and the 4.4. And my height is 2. So 1.6 plus 4.4 is going to be 6. So I have 1/2 times 6 times 2. Again, you can multiply in any order, so I could multiply 6 times 2 first to get 12, take half of that to get 6. I could take half of 6, which is 3, times 2 would give me 6, or half of 2 is 1, and then multiply times 6. Either way here, I'm going to get 6 square yards. And then we're going to look at a quick example over here. So the rectangle and the trapezoid have the same area. Find the length of the rectangle, okay? So because I know they have the same area, my first step here would be figure out the area of the trapezoid. So we're going to use our area formula, 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. Remember, my bases are the parallel sides, which are 8 and 14. The height is going to be 12. So if I add 8 plus 14, I get 22. This would be a good example where I could multiply in any order. So I could take half of 22 to get 11, and then multiply 11 times 12 to get 132 square yards. Or remember, we could you could do half of 12 to get 6 and multiply 6 times 22. Or you could just multiply the 22 times 12 and then take half of that answer. Either way, the area of that trapezoid is 132. So now we're going to apply that over to this rectangle. We know that these two areas are equal. So the area of a rectangle is length times width. So I know that 12 times my length has to equal 132. And then I'm just solving an equation. So I can divide by 12 and figure out that my length is going to be 11 yards. So go ahead and pause it and try this one using that same strategy. So the area of this trapezoid is going to be 56 square inches. And again, I know that my rectangle is length times width. So 7 times my length has to equal 56. And if I solve that equation, I'm going to figure out that my length should be 8 inches here. All right, have a wonderful day.